Minister is so desperate now, he's so on the run, that he resorted just to outright lies. Outright lies. The idea that I've suggested we should be punished with tariffs, I've never said anything of that kind whatsoever. What I'm saying is the opposite. What I'm saying to Americans is, please have a chat with the British government. Say this is not going to work the way it currently is.
Starmer's political demise. The Prime Minister's days are numbered. Right. Before we dive into this absolute political carnage, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to stay tuned for what's coming next, because British politics is about to get very interesting indeed. Now then, let's talk about something that would make even the most seasoned political observers choke on their Earl Grey. Keir Starmer's competitors must be positively gleeful because the Prime Minister is, quite frankly, completely finished. The writing isn't just on the wall. It's been carved in stone with a bloody great chisel. You know, I was at a wedding last Saturday evening, and whilst I freely admit I'm absolutely rubbish at telling jokes, I managed to get the biggest laugh of the night when I mentioned that some people still genuinely believe Starmer will not only win the next election but actually remain in Downing Street until the early 2030s. One of my mates nearly choked on his Chardonnay. Can you imagine? Yes, there are still one or two deluded souls out there who think Starmer's got that kind of staying power. But honestly, it's only one or two. What makes this particularly remarkable is that just a week earlier, his main rival Angela Rayner had been thoroughly humiliated and banished to the backbenches. Despite this apparent victory, Starmer was already on shaky ground. But as Harold Wilson, one of his Labour predecessors, so famously observed, a week is a long time in politics. How right he was. And speaking of time in politics, if you're enjoying this analysis, don't forget to subscribe because we're just getting started on this political autopsy. Thanks to the machinations of Peter Mandelson and Morgan McSweeney, last week absolutely obliterated whatever chances Starmer had left. The very notion of Starmer leading Labour until 2029 has suddenly become utterly preposterous. According to current betting odds of 13/8, he'll be out by the end of next year. That's not political speculation. That's where the smart money is going. Let's be brutally honest about how he got here. Starmer only secured the premiership through what can generously be called a loveless landslide, and that only because the nation was absolutely sick to death of the Tories after 14 grinding years. Any candidate sporting a red rosette would have waltzed into number 10. It wasn't a ringing endorsement of Starmer. It was a wholesale rejection of conservative governance. But here's where it gets deliciously ironic. The country is now experiencing severe buyer's remorse, finally recognizing that Starmer's administration is fundamentally incapable of delivering meaningful progress on anything that actually matters. Smash the gangs? Complete and utter shambles. Fastest growth in the G7? What an absolute joke. Raising standards for the working people? Stop sniggering at the back there. Yes, the Tories had their challenges with COVID in Ukraine, and things were undeniably dire under their watch. But everything has become exponentially worse under Labour. Now, before we continue dismantling this political train wreck, make sure you're subscribed because you won't want to miss what's coming next in British politics. The only thing that might potentially save the Prime Minister is that Andy Burnham, the man everyone's touting as his replacement, isn't actually an MP. But even that's a rather thin lifeline. The other major contender, Wes Streeting, is clinging to his constituency by the narrowest of margins. Additionally, Labour's internal party rules make it considerably more difficult to remove a failing leader compared to the Tories' more efficient disposal methods. But none of these procedural obstacles will ultimately matter. Sir Keir was already on the steepest possible downward trajectory even before last week's disasters, with approval ratings that position him as the most unpopular Prime Minister in recorded history after just 1 year in office. Whatever slim hopes he might have harbored were completely eviscerated last week. The man is politically deceased. The question has shifted from if to when. And in our current hyper-accelerated political climate, things move with frightening speed. Consider this sobering fact. Boris Johnson's poll numbers were soaring in the high 50s in early 2020, right after the COVID outbreak began. Just 2 years later, he was unceremoniously booted out of Downing Street. If a week constitutes a lifetime in politics, what does 8 months represent? In precisely 8 months, the Prime Minister faces a crucial electoral examination through the May local elections and the Scottish and Welsh Parliament elections. Unless something genuinely miraculous occurs for Sir Keir before then, and I genuinely cannot fathom what that might be, Reform will achieve spectacular victories whilst Labour suffers comprehensive defeat. Don't forget to subscribe if you're finding this analysis compelling, because we're building to something rather significant here. That's when the infamous men in grey suits will approach him with their polite but firm conversation, informing him that the game is definitively over, assuming they haven't already had that chat by then. Throughout his career, Starmer has been remarkably fortunate with his opponents. His timing has been impeccable. However, luck alone cannot sustain any prime minister for extended periods. Political capital, unlike renewable energy, doesn't magically replenish itself when you're governing this poorly. If I were Wes Streeting or Andy Burnham right now, I'd be absolutely licking my lips with anticipation. The opportunity of a political lifetime is rapidly approaching, and they must be able to smell the blood in the water from Westminster to Manchester. This isn't merely about one-man political mortality. It's about the fundamental realignment of British politics happening before our very eyes. The traditional certainties are crumbling. The old rules no longer apply, and we're witnessing the potential collapse of what many assumed would be a stable Labour government. So there you have it. Starmer's political obituary is being written in real time, and frankly, it's been a long time coming. The only remaining question is whether he'll have the dignity to recognize reality before it's thrust upon him, or whether he'll cling to power until he's dragged kicking and screaming from number 10. Make sure you're subscribed, because British politics is about to become absolutely fascinating, and you won't want to miss a single moment of what promises to be a spectacular political implosion. Trust me, the next few months are going to be unmissable viewing for anyone who appreciates the beautiful brutality of Westminster politics.